Nathaniel Bar-Jonah, the cannibal pedophile Nathaniel Bar-Jonah, born David Paul Brown, was a convicted child predator, suspected serial killer, and cannibal from Massachusetts and Montana. Bar-Jonah was notorious for his horrific crimes, including kidnapping, sexual assault, and his alleged cannibalistic tendencies. While he was officially convicted of multiple child-related crimes, authorities believe that his actions extended to murder, and there is significant evidence suggesting that he murdered and cannibalized at least one boy. Early life of Nathaniel Bar-Jonah. Nathaniel Bar-Jonah was born David Paul Brown on February 15, 1957, in Worcester, Massachusetts. From a young age, he exhibited disturbing behaviors, including a fascination with death and violence. Bar-Jonah later changed his name after his release from prison in 1991, adopting a biblical-sounding alias for religious reasons. Bar-Jonah's deviant behavior began to surface early. At the age of 7, he lured a 5-year-old neighbor into his basement, where he attempted to strangle the child. Although the boy survived, the incident was dismissed as childish curiosity. However, this was an early sign of Bar-Jonah's escalating violent tendencies. Early criminal behavior. Bar-Jonah's criminal activity continued throughout his teenage years, and into adulthood. He frequently targeted young boys, using various methods of manipulation to lure them into his control. In 1975, at the age of 18, Bar-Jonah dressed as a police officer and abducted an 8-year-old boy, sexually assaulting and attempting to strangle him. Miraculously, the boy escaped, and Bar-Jonah was arrested. Despite this serious offense, Bar-Jonah was only sentenced to 1 year of probation. His disturbing pattern continued in 1977, when he again dressed as a police officer and abducted 2 boys from a movie theater in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. He took the boys to a secluded area, where he sexually assaulted and tortured them. Fortunately, one of the boys escaped and alerted authorities, leading to Bar-Jonah's arrest. He was sentenced to 18 to 20 years in prison for attempted murder. Release and name change. In 1991, Bar-Jonah was released on parole after serving only 14 years of his sentence. After his release, he legally changed his name from David Paul Brown to Nathaniel Bar-Jonah in an attempt to distance himself from his criminal past. He moved to Great Falls, Montana, to live with his mother, and it was here that his crimes would take an even darker turn. The disappearance of Zachary Ramsey. One of the most chilling aspects of Nathaniel Bar-Jonah's story revolves around the disappearance of Zachary Ramsey, a 10-year-old boy who vanished on his way to school in Great Falls, Montana, on February 6, 1996. Ramsey was last seen walking down a street near Bar-Jonah's apartment complex, and investigators quickly focused on Bar-Jonah as a potential suspect. Although Ramsey's body was never found, authorities discovered disturbing evidence linking Bar-Jonah to the boy's disappearance. Neighbors reported seeing Bar-Jonah covered in blood around the time Ramsey disappeared, and during a search of Bar-Jonah's home, police found a macabre collection of items, including handwritten recipes involving human flesh, meat grinders, and lists of other potential child victims. One of the most horrifying pieces of evidence was Bar-Jonah's journal, which contained detailed accounts of how he would kill and cook his victims. There were numerous references to cooking and eating children, and authorities believed that Bar-Jonah had butchered Ramsey and used his body in meals he served to unsuspecting neighbors and friends. Some reports indicated that Bar-Jonah had invited people to eat homemade burgers and stews that may have contained human flesh. Cannibalistic tendencies. Bar-Jonah's journal entries were filled with cryptic references to cannibalism, using coded language to describe how he prepared and consumed his victims. He referred to children as little boy stew or little boy pot pie, and it was clear that he fantasized about, and possibly acted on, his cannibalistic urges. In addition to his written confessions, authorities found human hair in Bar-Jonah's meat grinder, and some remains were found that were never conclusively identified. while Bar-Jonah was never officially charged with cannibalism due to a lack of definitive forensic evidence, investigators were convinced that he had practiced cannibalism, especially in the case of Zachary Ramsey. Arrest and conviction. In 1999, Nathaniel Bar-Jonah was arrested after a separate investigation into the sexual abuse of a young boy. During the search of his apartment, investigators uncovered disturbing evidence, including the journals that detailed his fantasies about murdering, cooking, and eating children. They also discovered clothing and personal items that were believed to have belonged to some of his victims, although it was never confirmed if they belonged to Zachary Ramsey. Bar-Jonah was charged with multiple crimes, including kidnapping, sexual assault, and attempted murder. Although prosecutors sought to convict him of the murder of Zachary Ramsey, the charges were eventually dropped due to a lack of concrete physical evidence tying him directly to the boy's death. However, Bar-Jonah was convicted of kidnapping, sexual assault, and other child-related crimes and was sentenced to 130 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Death and legacy. Nathaniel Bar-Jonah died in prison on April 13, 2008, from heart failure. He was 51 years old at the time of his death. Despite his conviction for various crimes, many questions remain about the full extent of Bar-Jonah's actions. It is believed that he may have killed multiple children, and his obsession with cannibalism leaves open the disturbing possibility that many more victims could be linked to him. Bar-Jonah's case remains one of the most horrifying examples of cannibalism and pedophilia in modern American history. The brutal nature of his crimes, his bizarre obsession with cooking and eating children, and the disappearance of Zachary Ramsey continue to haunt investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike.